The method is madness. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe. And let's talk about what's happening in this but third month of Donald Trump's second term and first reign. So Donald Trump is going off the handles in attacking law firms and judges who rule against him in court. And Pam Bondi is the attorney general who is on TV on Fox attacking Judge Boasberg. You don't do that. You see how Chief Justice's words of restraint did not really work because they are attacking the judges and claiming that judges don't have the power of judicial review. That's simply not the case, at least not for the last 200 odd years that the United States has been a republic. So he is going after judges and by way of that their families and calling and his group of allies are calling for impeachment of judges. And obviously, Chief Justice says, impeachment isn't the way, appeal is the way. They don't really care about what Chief Justice says. And when Donald Trump targets with executive orders law firms, and then you have big law firms like Paul Weiss and Skadden kowtow to Donald Trump, bow down to him, but then you have Perkins Coie and two other Jennings something and another one that are fighting back. And so we now have this area, this really theater playing out in the legal community where which firms are going to stand strong and which law schools are going to stand strong against Donald Trump's tyranny and which are not. And we are seeing certain schools allow Donald Trump to have his free reign, like in Colombia. But I don't think that every school is going to be that way. I don't think law schools particularly are going to be that way. So I wanted to talk about the attacking of the judges and the lawyers because it is an attack on the rule of law. Lawyers are trained to be ministers of justice. We make sure that the law is being followed in procedures that range from everything from wills and trusts of individuals to the Constitution and constitutional law and securities and every other thing that society is ruled by, society is comprised of. So that is the need of law. And the attack on lawyers and judges is an attack on those institutions that hold society together. Like, what is a proper code of conduct? Can you go and just hit people and that'd be okay? Can you just go and steal from people and that'd be okay? Because that's what Donald Trump is trying to do in many ways, many words, is steal from the American people. That's what Elon Musk is doing every single day. While he tries to take away Social Security from people who on an average make $65 per day, while he's getting our government subsidies at the tune of $8 million a day. Yeah. $65 a day for Social Security people versus Elon Musk's $8 million per day in subsidies. So you can see who is benefiting and who is not, and why the administration and Congress need to keep their hands off of Social Security. And I hope that Social Security administration employees are hired back. Donald Trump also keeps on talking about running for a third term in violation of the 22nd Amendment. It's simply not going to happen. Just like his other constitutional collisions that are coming up with the 14th Amendment, with the Fifth Amendment, when you talk about the cruel and unusual punishment of holding people in El Salvador without due process of law in cruel and unusual conditions, including in ICE detention centers around the United States, where you have conditions that would be considered cruel and unusual if you were detained in them. So that's what we are going to talk about. And Donald Trump wants to do away with these constitutional provisions, including the 22nd Amendment, including, the Fifth Amendment's due process, Eighth Amendment, and allow states to violate the 14th Amendment. So that enables states to do so. And that's why he, wants lawyers to be out of a job or on their knees, because it's just going to make it easier for him to do that. If you can win over the rule of law, you can win over the Constitution, and you can just forego the rules of the 22nd Amendment. You'll also see what I've been noticing, if you notice it, that Donald Trump's press corps is slowly closing off to reliable mainstream press like the Associated Press and replacing it with propaganda outlets like Tim Pool. And, there's Fox and Newsmax and OAN, and those are now considered right-wing when they are actually, in truth, far-right extreme. And now you have people and propagandists like Tim Pool filling in while the media is being closed out, the media that Donald Trump doesn't like. That's how authoritarians work. That's how, dictators work, and we're going in that direction. The Trump administration is preparing to fire every single worker in the Office of Infectious Diseases. I've talked to you about that with Bobby Jr. and the Health and Human Services, and that includes the infectious disease and HIV/AIDS policy. Now, I can't even think of what the reasoning may be for that. Maybe the angle is Donald Trump wants to please pharmaceutical companies by not making HIV drugs available for free to Americans, but charging people. I don't know what it's going to do with the lower income group of people who go to public health centers for their HIV medication. It's going to create a whole new wave of new infection, because we know for a fact that humans and their human intimacy doesn't go away. People are being careless. They have been careless for years now because of medicines like PrEP, and with the with the destruction of HIV/AIDS policy in American soil, you are going to essentially enable the crisis from exploding in lower income populations that get their medicine from the government. And Donald Trump has gone out and betrayed the American people and his voters again, saying, I couldn't care less about prices. He doesn't care. He couldn't care less that you're going to pay more for your car, more for your lumber, more for your beer, more for the barley for the beer and the tin for the beer. Because, you have everything in the United States now, right? Yeah, we do. We have them in protected lands. We have trees in protected lands. Donald Trump wants to go after those trees so we can have our own lumber. Forget the climate crisis, forget the balance, forget the ecosystem, forget all of that. We are going to make things cheaper by bringing tariffs in. And then the other scam is that MAGA believes that Doji, by making its billions and billions of dollars in cuts, is eventually going to translate into Doji checks going to MAGA or going to Americans. They're actually believing that they're going to get paid by Elon, who is cutting government fraud, waste, and abuse at the tune of taking from the government of $8 million a day using Air Force One, trying to influence politics in Wisconsin, trying to bend the rule of law to his will. It's an oligarchy. It's an autocracy. And then you have Donald Trump saying, I couldn't care less for the prices. So you're seeing the government retract into its oligarchic shell and become hardened in how it goes after lawyers and how it talks about, just not following the Constitution, how it closes off to media, how it cuts off lower income health by taking away funding and firing workers who deal with infectious diseases. That doesn't take care of what waste, fraud, and abuse. You need a scalpel for that to go into those agencies and see where the waste is. And if there was fraud, where are the prosecutions? Where the fraud is, where the illegal actions are. It is with Elon paying $1 million to two people in Wisconsin who pledged to vote. And Wisconsin officials have said that it is illegal in Wisconsin to give anybody any money for votes, anything more than $1. And so Wisconsin authorities plan on pursuing this case, and they're trying to figure out the best way to do it. Right before coming on to talk to you, I was going down the news, scrolling, and I saw Reuters report about a fire in a building in a location where it says it has been graffitied that ICE equals KKK. So clearly it's a leftist attack on a right-wing property. I reiterate again. Let me say that again. I reiterate. I say it again and again and again. That crimes are not protest. Arson and vandalism is not protest. They are crimes. They are madness. Part of the madness that we are experiencing now. Because right before I got on to talk to you, there were people who confronted me for saying this, that this is madness, arson and vandalism are crimes. They're like, well, what about how they're treating the other? I'm talking about that as well. That is a different topic. Don't what about now because it suits you. Don't what about away the difference between peaceful protest and crime. Because what that does is that it weakens the position of those who peacefully protest. And it gives Donald Trump and his goons the reasoning they need to go blanketedly after all those who protest because the few who couldn't resist or who couldn't refrain from violent action as a means of protest have now put a target on the backs of those who peacefully protest, thereby undermining our First Amendment right of peaceable protest. We don't have the right to violently protest. That's why there are laws, there's vandalism, there's arson, which is what's happening right now. So the vandalism and the arson, wherever it may be, needs to stop. You can say ICE equals KKK all you want, and I would borderline agree with you. We have the ICE right now, which is like the Gestapo, that's disappearing people in an authoritarian regime. And it's a really, really serious issue. But that doesn't make your arson or your vandalism okay. Those are crimes. You lifting up signs that says that, okay. You screaming that in front of people, okay. You saying that to politicians, that's okay. You going and burning things down, not okay. Because that is a crime. That is not peaceful protest. It's simple as that. The last thing I leave you with is right before I got on, I saw that the Japan's stock market took a 4%, or one of the indexes took a 4% hit because of retreating markets and because of what Donald Trump is doing with the tariffs. So when the stock markets open, expect them to be low and wait to see what happens, because we are in quite a predicament as to where the economy, global economy, is going to go, especially since Donald Trump keeps threatening more tariffs and using tariffs as a bargaining chip for trade or any other thing that he wants from the different countries that he's imposing tariffs upon. So, and he doesn't care about the prices, you know. He doesn't care. It is not going to affect him and his oligarchic friends who he's closing off the world to, so they can have their cake and eat it too. And even tell us that we can eat cake when we can't afford it. Because they simply don't know what it is like to live paycheck to paycheck. It's as simple as that. Like millions and millions of Americans do, they don't know how to do that. To them, these are minor disruptions and disturbances. To us, these are major, major, major events in our life that makes us think whether we can afford to buy a dozen eggs or not. Because not only are the price of eggs keep staying up, but now more people are going to get fired. And the fallout from Donald Trump's actions are not just going to be limited to the people who have been fired, but the people who are part of the consumer chain of those who are fired. The fallout will be just rippled through the economy. And the economy is going to be a case for concern for quite some time. I want you to pay attention to the indexes around the world and see how they respond to how Donald Trump is approaching his economic policies and his tariffs. It's an important thing to look out for. So, with that said, stay safe, stay vigilant. Please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.